Ariana's favorite, yeah, Ariana's hot single, 10 rings in hand. No!
Two more and I get a free waffle cone.
Ariana Oprah.
God damn it. Okay, how many pulls do I have? I have 2. Okay, my pity right now is what? $80? 82? It's a sign. Am I really just gonna sit here? I'm like, for what? Just a few days until Constance drops. What do you think is gonna happen to my team once I get Constance? How much more damage is Harmony Trailblazer gonna do? Let's take a look. Let me see. Stop. Let's see. If I had Boot Hill, if I got Boot Hill, his basic, enhanced basic would do 1,964,827. Okay. With 200 speed. Okay. Not very good. If I go HMC. Okay, and I get E1 Dahlia with my win set. I could do a grand total of... Oh, shit. Check Firefly. Oh, God. Well, I know, but we have double drops. Like, that's my thing. Like, we have double drops. Where do you even go? Elation Himiko. It's, you know what? I could get those Elation masks for eventual Yagong. That is true. And then convert them into anything I don't need. That is a good point. Who's next? Dahlia. Hello, Dahlia. Who the fuck is she? Oh, the Dahlia. Okay. And is it Ranmei or is it HMC? I think it's HMC. How much speed does Firefly want? 200? Ew. Ew. Wait, what? Oh my god, Eden, you scared the shit out of me. Fuck you. Oh my god. You idiot. Ugh. Damn it. You scared the fuck out of me. Oh my god. Um, that is a lot of damage. I think if I got Firefly and just threw her on my account, she would be my best DPS by far. Oh god. No, okay, but think about it. Hmm. I know, but I need to. It's fine. It's fine. I'll wait. I'll wait. I'll wait. You're right. I'll just wait. Why the fuck is she reaching 200 speed with attack boots? I hate her so bad. No way. Where is that coming from? 60. When an ally target. What? Oh my god. Oh well. I guess I'll just sit here and do nothing. Ooh. Mm. Alright, y'all. I guess I'll stop. Oh. Today, we have an Abyss later on Reset, and we have Stygian Onslaught, and we have more Resident Evil to do, and which I'm really excited for. Is it bad that I'm actually looking forward to Resident Evil? What's happening? What's happening? I don't know. I'm kind of excited for it. Well, no. A horror girly. It's not that I liked Until Dawn. It's not that I liked all the Resident Evils I played. It's not that I'm playing this one by myself, and I'm kind of liking it. But I'm finding it. If it has good game design, we'll take it. How's about that? If it's got good game design and it's scary and it's fun, I might give it a go. I might give it a go. I'm not fucking. Well, I might play. Okay, I do kind of want to play Five Nights at Freddy's. Do I have Security Breach? I have Five Nights at Freddy's too. Why? What other scary games do I even have? Dream Daddy, Dad Dating Simulator. Okay. Okay. Town of Salem? Oh no, that's wait, no, not that. We Were Here? Is that scary? No. Zumba Deluxe. Yes. Jackbox Party Pack. Dead by Daylight? Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I think that's a bot in the AC channel. Hold on, I need you to go kill it. Anyway, okay, we'll come back later on today and we will do multiple games. In the meantime, I'm not really tired, so I guess I'll just like do Currency Wars? Oh, I had a video I wanted to watch. And I forgot what it was. No, we already watched that one. Here, hold on. Globa did make a Star Wars video, but I was going to watch this context video.
So, if I'm gonna be honest with you, ever since my last video where I brought up how context changes things regarding vertical investment, I felt a little unsatisfied with how much I was able to talk about it, since it's genuinely such an important factor when advising others in a gacha game. And while I may have broke down the important bits, I think we should still sit down, one-on-one, and have a dedicated discussion on this, because any past, present, or future recommendation I or anyone else gives you on this game has to be viewed through the context of your account. Well, just throwing the word context doesn't really mean much to us right now. So let's iron out what creates the context of your account and how that impacts the decisions that you make. The issue is, answering that question is, well, a little nuanced, since there are a lot of things that contribute to it. So we're gonna have to group some stuff up to make this more digestible. With that, I divide account context into 4 main factors. That being your goals, luck, preferences, and pre-existing characters. I believe it's these 4 things that dictate everything you do, from who you pull to what you farm, and most importantly, what information is actually relevant to you. Now that that's established, let's dive a little deeper into those topics, starting with your goals. Now this one may seem the most straightforward, but I believe there's a little more to it than others may actually think. Anywho, it's pretty clear to understand why your goals would impact your decision making, as how important the endgame is to you will naturally impact the weight of every decision. For instance, whether you just want to clear comfortably, or zero cycle, will ramp up the importance of each investment you make exponentially. However, I think it's important to remember that your goals can, and likely will, adapt as things change. I think with the nature of this game having multiple endgame modes requiring many different types of teams, it's actually very common for someone to, let's say, care deeply about clearing in little to no cycles for something like MOC, while maybe just looking to clear pure fiction. As such, it's pretty obvious that an account like that would gain little to nothing pulling someone who specializes in pure fiction, like the Herda. Furthermore, with the shift in balancing for anomaly arbitration, making zero cycling or even just 3-starring the night stages far more difficult than doing so on the king and check stage.
Oh, nice.
Many people are starting to shift their goals for that game mode too. Considering the knights require 3 strong teams that hold 0 overlap with one another, this shift in balancing, not to mention the, let's say, aggressive shilling that's been appearing in the recent stages, has caused problems for even the strongest accounts out there. Thus, many are starting to lower their expectations of performance in night stages, and instead shift their priority to getting better clears on the king and check. Doing that would then heavily incentivize you to vertically invest into one strong team, as opposed to 3. You can already see that by making those small adjustments to your goals, there's already a shift in the type of decision you'll make, and the value of each pull. So then, making a clear goal for your account, and planning each decision with that goal in mind creates a huge difference between your account and everyone else's. On the other hand, our next topic is spoken about far less as a contributing factor to decision making, which is the importance of luck. And honestly, I understand why it isn't really brought up much in discussions, since it is single-handedly the hardest factor to evaluate and is highly unreliable. But unfortunately, luck can very easily change the direction of your account, which is a big impact on specifically pull priority. Now when I say that, your first thought might be, well, yeah, having bad luck will make something like vertical investment harder, or could lock you out of upgrades for a while. And while that's definitely true, I actually want to put emphasis here on good luck, and how it shifts the value of things dramatically. For this section, I'll bring up examples from my and my friends' accounts, since I think there's no better way to explain how luck changes things than to show it directly. So let me paint a picture here for you. Imagine you're me. You've just finished crying after completing the 3.4 story, watching the insane performance that Finon's voice actor provided us, and decided that Finon's gonna be one of your favorite characters.
Okay.
You plan to pull him.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, you weren't happy with his E0 kit, and decided to pull for him and his E2 on a future rerun, deciding to pick up any teammates that may come for him in the future. And then 3.5 hits, and you hear Saridra is basically tailor-made for the guy, so you decide to, let's say, pre-order his team by picking up an easier S0 Saridra and then calling it a day. And then the second half of 3.6 hits. We start getting leaks of Cyreni's kit, which comes with a lot of doom posting, but some of it is pretty funny, so it entertains you at least. But what really matters is that you start hearing that 3.7 will have Finon's rerun, something that you know you can't afford to pull on, since High Sealand's drained a lot of your funds. So, with the pain of having to skip Finon again looming over you, you decide to throw what little pulls you have on the light cone banners that are up, which you know you shouldn't do, but it's not like anything's gonna happen, right? And then something happens.
Oh.
Now there are two ways you can play this.
Why did you do that?
You could decide to ignore the fact that you pulled this.
Why did you
Still
pull
try
an
your luck
Axa?
with Finon,
What?
even though, statistically,
What?
you're not getting a Z2. Or, 2, you can pivot into investing in an Axis team, which is a character with an actual E0 kit. No flame to Finon, but let's just be honest with ourselves here. And someone you would have the premium supports for.
Okay.
Which choice would you make?
You would.
Well, unfortunately,
Finon, I guess?
I'm not the kind of person to pull someone just because I like them. Instead, I focus much more on what's the best meta choice. And since I could realistically only
Do
get
we actually
either
have
team
any
at
meta
E0,
slaves in the community?
I-
And I mean like real ones? Like real ones? I don't know if we even have any. Do we? I won't pull anything unless it's tier 0. Do we? I don't know if we do.
chose an Axa since he's stronger at that level of investment.
That
But I'm
degree?
very aware
Yeah, I
that
don't
few
think so.
people
Yeah.
make their choices dependent on meta. So here's another story that might hit closer to home for others. Now imagine you've been a fan of Elysia from Honkai Impact 3rd for quite a while,
Fair, there's Eden,
and you
yeah.
hear that her XP, Cyrene, will be playable in 3.7.
Well, yeah, I think you can pull Bonnyway as a result of like having the M2 Miyabi, you know what I'm saying? Like, right?
So you decide to skip most of 3.5 and 3.6 in anticipation of her release, intending to dump everything into getting as many Cyrenes as possible. Luckily, the world decides to reward that dedication, and you manage to grab E4 Cyrene and her light cone without much trouble.
Nice.
Beyond Cyrene, the other Crisis heirs on this account are an E0S1 Aglaia, an Axa, Finon, Hyacinth, Evernight, and an E1 S0 Chibi. So the question is, what would be the best way for that account to use their Cyrene?
As a hyper carry, what? or maybe with Finon, I guess. Depends on the context of the content you're fighting. Yeah. You should have RMC here over Trippy, probably. And then run Hyacinth and Ebonite, yeah.
And how would you recommend them to vertically invest further into the team?
Oh, E1 Ebonite, E1 Hyacinth, E1 Hyacinth, E1 Ebonite, and then call it a day?
And how would you recommend them to vertically invest further into the team? Well, with our baseline being an E4S1 Cyrene,
Right.
it's quite clear that her best role would be that as a DPS, as her E1 and E4 are huge spikes for her
Right.
personal damage. With that established, it's fairly easy to picture the team looking something like this, with the last slot changing depending on the need for sustain.
Need for
As both
sustain.
City or Hyacinth could easily slot there.
Oh, that's not
Onto that second
optional.
weapon.
Oh, baby, that's not optional. What are you talking about? Optional. Oh, perish the thought. Oh, that's not how that works. Oh.
Question. While many may default to saying E2 every night is the next stopping point, I'd actually argue that would be the very last pull that should be made.
Probably, yeah.
As Evernight E1 is a very strong
Yeah, you
stopping
would get the
point, which is
E1.
being used in supportive role.
Yeah.
Not to mention the obvious value for grabbing E6 Cyrene, which, well, it may not provide a big damage increase to her DPS teams. The utility of the action advance alongside the Death Shred makes it an insane upskill for Cyrene. There's also a very strong argument to be made that before either of those investments, E2 Hyacinth could yield higher results.
Yeah.
Considering speed buffs scale incredibly well on Cyrene. On top of the fact that Hyacinth E1 is a source of another rare buff, which could easily lead to scenarios where Hyacinth could beat Trippy's amp while providing the comfort of a sustain, which could be invaluable. Do you see what I'm getting at here? Luck changes the pull priorities so much that it becomes an impossible task to tell others who to pull first accurately.
Yeah.
For that reason, the recommendations from pull priorities or tier lists tend to give information that does not apply to others.
Yeah.
Hence why I did a whole tier list segment in my previous video doing exactly that, and then immediately followed it up with an explanation as to why there's a good chance everything I said there doesn't actually apply to most of you. But let's shift our focus here to
Oh my God, is
something
that
that has
Archidon?
zero RNG, which would be player or enemy preference. Now I make that distinction because both sides will have preferences that will dictate which decision or characters will be more important. And it's very important to weigh both sides equally. Let's get the far easier one out of the way to describe, which would be player preference. This would basically sum up to what characters, endgame priorities, or relic optimization you would prefer to make. So beyond just listing out the characters you like most, it also involves other things, like forcing them in unfavorable scenarios,
Yeah.
farming endlessly until you get an insane build for them,
Yeah.
and much more. Decisions like this will mean that not only are you allocating more pulls to one team than other teams, but you're also using them in more content, which will require stronger gear.
No, I'm done,
sacrifices.
crew.
It's this imbalance that we make because of preferences that require you to adapt your decisions and pulls accordingly. But on the other hand, you've got enemy preferences, which is where enemies' strengths and weaknesses lead to some characters rising above the rest. Just to be clear, this goes beyond the shield mechanics that enemies will have for the new releases. I'm really talking about something inherent with how the teams function that makes them favorable in content. The character that gains the most from this concept is actually Castris, as she's one of the few characters to get stronger in fights that have more aggressive enemies. This leads to situations where even though an enemy like Hule, a single target and quantum resistant boss, should be horrible for Castris, but because he just hits that many times, you get enough extra ults that she's among the best choices into that fight.
Fuck.
It's this concept that makes it very hard to assess her, as she's a very feast or famine kind of character that excels in favorable matchups, while also being extremely replaceable to someone like RMC in unfavorable ones. While Castris is certainly an outlier in this regard, I would like to bring up other examples, as concepts like this are seen in almost every modern DPS or team composition. For one, with the inclusion of Cyrene and her specific buffs to Chrysos heirs, characters like Anaxa and Mighty have changed their playstyle to follow a more burst damage profile. With their ability to save resources and dump them all in one big burst, plus their very high toughness damage, these two characters excel in situations where the enemy weakens themselves later into the fight.
Yeah.
Which can be seen through fights like Ecor, Sam, or the recent boss with Sparksy. Then you've got a character like Phynon, who has the very rare ability to action advance the enemy with his counter, allowing you to skip directly to favorable parts of the fight, like with Lygus or the Sting Bug. And we can't forget our free-to-play savior, Archer, who holds similar benefits to Anaxa and Mighty with his burst playstyle, but also benefits greatly from enemies that provide skill points, like Sam or Sparksy. There are many more examples out there. We'd be sitting here all day if we went down the list one by one. And finally, we've got our last segment for today. The influence that your pre-existing characters will have on decision making. I feel this point is actually growing in importance recently, as the constant upgrades being released for older archetypes have led to varying levels of investment by the time these upgrades are released.
This is vertical the game. You know that? Like, it really is vertical the game. It really is vertical the game. And it's not just like pull idolins, but like, you know, like you need pieces of a team to put it fully together into the final product. You know what I'm saying? And if you like are missing out on things and try to like you ADHD wander off somewhere else, then I don't want to say you get fucked, but like you just have a drastically different experience. But when you finally do reach that like crawl towards what you're looking for, it just feels like so much better. Like a Goliath, for instance, right? Not having Sunday or Cyrene, it's like, what? Like, it takes a bit, but when you get there, it feels nice, you know?
For instance, the revival of Dot with High Ceilings.
Oh yeah, Dot would be another one, yeah.
In Kafka and Black Swan beforehand, but led to very little value for those who never invested in the archetype. The same thing can be said about Break with Dahlia, and now Ashvale with Follow-Up. Speaking of Break though, I'd like to put more of a focus on it today, since it's getting a decent upgrade with Firefly Nova Flare, and a pretty good chance of both a Dahlia and Firefly rerun in 4.2. So many people might be considering investing into it soon. That being said, Break is an archetype that benefits a lot from very specific vertical investment stopping points, which makes it very difficult to recommend for others. Well, beyond the obvious of Firefly's disgusting E2, you have the very strong Fugue E1 that helps both with damage and breaking faster. Dahlia's signature that gives an undiluted and very valuable damage increase to herself and the break carry. Dahlia's E1 that helps a lot in Apocalyptic Shadow, or niche fights that require you to break very quickly. Then both Dahlia and Fugue's E2 that somewhat trivialize Pure Fiction, depending on the carry. Even with all these strong vertical options, it's widely seen as better to grab Firefly E2 first, then grab vertical on the other two supports once you feel it necessary. But what if you were lucky? What if you already had some of those Eidolons or Lycons before? How would that change your pull priority? Now that is the situation that I was put in after Dolly's release. Because for some reason, unknown to me, Break just loves me, and blessed me with both an E2S1 Fugue and Dahlia, and a ridiculously low amount of pulse.
Whoa, that is so early. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Jeez. That's early as heck. But you got a brick, but that's fine.
Because of this, I had to figure out the best way to use them. So I looked at what I already have. Now my options were an E0S0 Firefly, an E1S1 Linksha, and an E1S1 Rappa. And after testing each of them in multiple endgame modes, my conclusions led to Linksha being my strongest option, and has become one of my strongest teams in my account.
Linksha.
So because of what I already own, my Break team and investment into Break looks very different from most other accounts, and yet it's still extremely strong. Situations like this, where the combination of existing characters leads to very unorthodox allocation of investment, are actually more common than you may believe. So while it's valuable to understand what investment stopping points are strong, it's just as important, if not more so, to look at what you have and reflect on if that's best for you. After all this yapping, you must be thinking, what's even the point of giving recommendations at all if there are like 5,000 different things that can change the answer?
Yeah.
Well, it's because you can get an answer that works for you. It just won't be from the general videos or tier lists that you'll see on the internet. That doesn't say they all provide zero value, as providing a rough map of where to place your pulls will always yield some innate value. But that's only under the condition that you view that information through the lens of your account. For those who actually need help, I suggest you share screenshots of your account.
I suggest you ask good questions. I suggest you ask good questions. Like, questions that give insight into what's actually going on, so that the people that are trying to help you can like really help you. You know what I'm saying? And not give you like half-ass help that like you'll be like, oh, I don't really agree with that. You know? Well, I guess asking good questions is like, I guess giving context. You know what I mean? Giving an idea. This is my account. This is what I have. I like this. I'm looking forward to this. I have this many pulls. What should I do? You know?
To others. Tell them your pull plans. Then ask what would be the best way to invest further.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
There are plenty of Discord servers out there where people do exactly that. And there's a reason why asking for advice in this manner is seen as standard. That's because it works. So, for anyone who's stuck and doesn't know the best way to move forward in your account, trust me, there are many jobless people out there, just like myself, who'd be willing to help you out.
Shut up! Alright, I like this guy. Okay, alright, you're getting a sub. Yeah, you're getting a sub. You're getting a sub.
Okay. I know saying this means nothing, since this is my third video, but this is my longest video so far, and I am so down to never make them this long ever again. But, assuming I actually continue making content, which I do intend to do for now, I imagine I'm going to reference this video a lot, so I need to do it right. Now, on the topic of other videos, I have a lot of ideas in my mind right now, but once beta wraps up, I'll probably make more developed videos on how the new Elation comps changes things. So look out for that after V5. Anyways, though, bye-bye!
Huh. Hector profile pic. Yeah, we like this guy. That was nice.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We got the first unit is Silverwolf 999. Silverwolf is receiving the game's glaze unlike any other character in the game. Wolfie is an elation DPS that scales off only her speed stat and has an energy system that relies on punchline generation. So you already know where this is going. Silverwolf is a mono elation unit. If you're not running 3 elation units with her, she is significantly worse and feels very bad to play. Her current best in slot team is Sparksy and Yao Guang, but EMC is not that far behind Sparksy at lower investment, that you can cut your budget to go more into Wolfie Eidolons before Sparksy if you really want to main Silverwolf. Okay. Yao Guang is the most important part of Silverwolf's team, and this is where the problem lies. The closest alternative to Yao Guang is quite literally either Sparkle or Asta. Since Wolfie only converts speed to elation, Asta is actually not that bad of a unit, but you can imagine that Silverwolf might have to do a bit of extra pulling to carry these teams without Yao Guang. Is Silverwolf bricked using these characters? No, it still works, especially with Eidolons, but you're gonna have to pull Yao Guang someday with the way Silverwolf's damage is going. Because Silverwolf is part of the flagship team, I don't really need to split up her performance in the 3 endgame modes and Anomaly Arbitration, since she does really well at both. In the 3 endgame modes, Silverwolf clears PF really easily due to her high amounts of AoE and speed. In Memories of Chaos, she has bounce and AoE to deal with all target counts, and her only real problem in Apocalyptic Shadow is weakness matchups to Shred Toughness, which can be mitigated by the base Silverwolf, who's a 50-50 loss now, But of course, weakness type issues is not exclusive to her, especially in Apocalyptic Shadow, so it oftentimes doesn't matter. In terms of higher difficulty like Anomaly Arbitration, you know the score already. Not only is the raw damage of Mono Elation itself really high, but the enemies actively become neutered in offense and defense if you use Elation on them. Thus, Mono Elation becomes one of the fastest low-cost teams, and Silverwolf is the current best carry for the entire archetype. Of course, this amount of shilling is mostly to cover up Mono Elation's lack of a real premium sustain, to make them feel better than Mono Remembrance. But it is clear that the lack of a sustain will only be a temporary issue, and at some point this issue will be resolved by a new unit. Plus, it's being compared to the top 1 team in the game regardless, named Mono Elation. Even if they are top 2, it's still very impressive that they are that close to Mono Remembrance. In essence, Silverwolf is one of the best carries in the game, provided you have the entire Mono Elation team that you should have sooner or later to keep Silverwolf viable.
Okay.
As for investment, Silverwolf is pretty straightforward to pull for. The bare minimum recommendation is to get Yao Guang no matter what. You don't need Yao Guang's Eidolons or Sig, though it is nice. You're better off using that on Silverwolf's Eidolons if you really want to main her. Silverwolf's biggest Eidolon jump early on is E2, while her E1 in comparison is just kind of okay. Her Sig is also really important for her. Ideally, you want Silverwolf to be at E0S1 or E2S0. Being stuck at E1S1 is kinda bad, and you should have just focused on E2 instead of Signature. After that, Yao Guang Z1 is pretty good, and then Sparksy would be your last unit to focus on if you want to focus on her at all.
Pretty good.
You could just make Silverwolf.
Is it with Evanesia that Yao Guang's E1 is like the stupidest thing ever?
E6 instead of investing more into Sparksy. Pretty simple. Silverwolf isn't like Finon in the sense that pulling E2 Finon means you can run literal garbage with Finon and still probably clear. Silverwolf still wants her premium options, and you're kind of just throwing a band-aid over it that you have to get a real solution for someday. That's all for Silverwolf. Nothing much else really to say. She's part of the flagship. She's the best DPS of the flagship. Her team is a safe pull. Yada yada yada. It shouldn't be, surprising what I say about her.
Oh god.
Next are the reruns, and first of all is Dahlia. In my first evaluation, I said Dahlia was outright necessary for any account that wants Break to be usable, and that has only become more intense with time. Dahlia brings the complete package, and with recent matchups and stat inflation, Dahlia becomes more and more necessary for Break as if she already wasn't. To evaluate Dahlia is evaluating the Break archetype itself, and from Dahlia's performance since release, Break is one of the best teams in the game at the moment due to its sheer comfort and logistical advantages. For starters, the Break archetype itself is very isolated. While this could also qualify as a disadvantage, in team lock content like Anomaly Arbitration, this factor prevents Break from stealing high value supports that would be required for another team. Like for example, you have Evernight, Anaxa, and Finon in the same account. Your Cyrene is going to be stretched pretty thin, and one of your teams are inevitably going to be at a damage loss. Dahlia has no issues with this, since she only exists for one team, and her team members itself aren't easy to steal away from Break either. In fact, most of her party members are pretty useless outside of Break anyway. The second advantage that Break has is that it is anti-crit. So far, there hasn't been a single Anomaly Arbitration debuff that outright counters DOT and Break. On the contrary, there's been incredibly tough stages that are against teams that aren't DOT or Break. This provides a pretty significant advantage, since even if the stage isn't anti-crit,
I will say one of Break or Dot on an account is probably a really good idea. For AA, given those idiot fucking annoying buffs. Holy shit.
crit, there's very few things stopping Break to be usable with enough investment. And if it is anti-crit, you can rest easy with low-cost Break instead of sacrificing a powerful high-cost team just to brute force it. And since I'm talking about Anomaly Arbitration, all of these benefits apply to the other endgame modes much more effectively, with Break, unlike DOT and Elation, having much more stellar Apocalyptic Shadow performances over the two, with decent performance in PF and MOC to boot. Break is just very easy to brute force with compared to many other teams, which is very valuable for a new account with limited rosters trying to dip their toes into endgame. So is
Wait, what lie did I miss? Wait, let me look.
Much more effectively, with Break, unlike DOT and Elation, having much more stellar Apocalyptic Shadow performances over the two, with decent
Oh, I mean, if you have Firefly, If you have Firefly and Dahlia, maybe.
Performance in PF and MOC to
Ooh, I don't know about that one. Whoa, hold on, wait.
more effectively. With Break, unlike DOT and Elation, having much more stellar Apocalyptic Shadow performances over the two, with decent performance in PF and MOC to
Ooh, I don't
Break
know
is
about
just
that.
very easy to brute force with compared to many other teams, which is very valuable for a new account with limited rosters trying to dip their toes into endgame. So, is Dahlia a must pull? No, she's not for everybody. But is Dahlia worth it if you really want the Break archetype? Yes, she's the key to a very strong archetype, much like Kafka. If she's not there, then say goodbye to ever using that one archetype. But again, as a reminder, it's not the only archetype that exists, so don't feel pressured to pull for it if you already have good archetypes in your account. As for investing into Dahlia, investing in Dahlia is a very good idea, since one of her
Yes, it
main
is.
advantages is giving Break better verticals to raise their ceiling in the future endgame mode. For Firefly specifically, Firefly can dip into her personal Eidolons, since they are just as impactful as Dahlia's Eidolons, and she could skip out on some Dahlia investment. But if you're intending to run any other Break unit, like main DPS Ling Sha, Himiko, Rappa, Butil, Shui, or whatever, the next big upgrades for these Break carries are always Dahlia investments instead of their own. Dahlia's signature is incredibly strong for Firefly, Butil, and Rappa, units that are usually able to constitute nearly all of the team's DPS. Having this sig that only buffs one unit with effectively true damage per break is as nuts as it sounds. Dahlia's E1 is particularly useful for more balanced damage distributions like Himiko and Ling Sha. Being able
Okay.
to give a super break multiplier to everybody in these teams is just one part of it, but being able to drain toughness immediately is very difficult to replace, especially for Himiko's mechanics and boss brute forcing. E2 is also a stellar upgrade for units without spammable implants and rely a lot on it, like Himiko, Ling Sha, and Grappa. Not only does it line up well with AoE matchups these units are amazing for, but 20% reduction is also just really strong for the entire break archetype. Here's the chart that I made to invest in Dahlia since 3.8, and since nothing's changed, I didn't really change it either. She aged way better than expected, which makes sense because look at her. Actually, don't. I'm getting distracted. Sorry. Next for the reruns is Castris. Castris is the infamous anniversary unit from last year who scales off HP loss and healing. It's well documented how powerful Castris is, and her utility with global passive, saving many extreme sustainless runs, would not be possible without her. Even if you don't use Castris, she is an overall net benefit if you are able to use her global passive well, but most people unfortunately really won't, so I wouldn't pull her just for the global passive. Just like Silverwolf, she is a DPS of a very broken team core that allows her to shine as one of the strongest units in the game. And just like Wolfie, Castris feels a lot worse if she's even missing one teammate like the sad wet puppy princess that she is, notably Evernight and Hyacinth. Without these units, or just Eidolons on Castris to compensate, Castris feels pretty bad even in the lower endgame mode. She should still clear though, like it's not impossible, she just feels very hollow as a unit.
I said that a while ago about her. Like, I said it a while ago that sells all the characters on the field and for double gold coins. Your next 6 purchases are free. Sell everybody and then get double gold coins. When synthesizing and obtaining advanced equipment, take 1 good fortune token instead. Okay. Gains 1 piece of base equipment and 10 XP. Okay. Jiao Cho and Fei Xiao. Okay. A global passive. Well, no, like, she literally is. I mean, like, she is very much so the sum of her parts. I'll say that.
Like any other unit, since time has caught up quite a bit with her. She plays well with Pure Fiction due to the enemy attack frequency and not relying on her own turns to activate her damage. She's flexible target count wise due to bounce, and she's very difficult to kill with Hyacinth. As for her power level in Anomaly Arbitration, finally, I'm actually splitting this up for a good reason. While Castris at E0 is fine for the other 3 endgame modes, in my experience, Castris at Anomaly Arbitration without Eidolons is having a bit of trouble trying to catch up. Testing her out in night stages compared to Evernight both at E0 has shown a clear difference of where the power budget in Mono-Rem truly lies, that being Hyacine and Evernight, with Cyrene being a mediator and Castris not being truly necessary to the archetype. It's not impossible to full star Knights with E0 Castris, mind you, just a lot more difficult than what most people would assume. Thankfully, Castris does have good Eidolons, but it's not always the right move. For one, while Castris' Eidolons are good, Evernights are just that much stronger, and Hyacine is much more versatile and better at lower cost. So if you were going to make cast stronger, Evernight's E1 might be better than whatever cast can pull for.
I agree.
But there is one thing about Mono-Rem that most archetypes cannot do. It's the fact that they can mitosis very successfully and Anomaly Arbitration. For example, instead of side 1 having both E2 Castris and E2 Evernight, why not just split them into 2 comps and split Cyrene and Hyacine evenly to match the power level needed?
Because it would be dog
Mono-Rem
shit.
is strong enough that with enough investment, they can break apart and become lower cost teams than the sum of their parts. This is really only reliable if your Castris and Evernight both have Eidolons. With
Okay.
E2 Evernight and E2 Castris being able to split Cyrene, RMC, and Hyacine apart pretty effectively, and still perform a full star night stage clear. So while Castris for the singular Mono-Rem team isn't necessary, splitting up the team does require Castris with Eidolons to be very effective. And if that's not enough, the King stage will melt under the presence of both E2 invested cast and E9 together, solving both your Knight and King issues at the same
Well, that's
time.
too
This is
expensive.
backed up with many upsides in the archetype itself, like being very difficult to kill, countering interference, which is a very annoying Anomaly Arbitration debuff with Cast's energy system, and generally just being flexible in target counts with Cyrene. So it's not a completely bad idea to pull for Castris' Eidolons, it's just that you might have to invest in Evernight first and Hyacine before you get to it. And it is overall a very effective strategy in Anomaly Arbitration that it really isn't a waste. Again, Castris at E0 is really the only problem here. Once she has more Eidolons, her issues are kinda solved. As for investment, Castris is a unit that first off wants a complete team.
What would I
Hyacine
do?
is the most
If I were going to invest in the Castris, I would not get her and get Evernight. I would get her, Hyacin. Honestly, the rest kind of make me tired thinking about it.
important, then Evernight, then Cyrene. Once the E0 base is complete, pull for Castris and Hyacine's signature, though you can also pull for Hyacine's E1 in place of her signature, but ideally you want both. The next E1 would usually be Evernight, even with focusing on trying to buff Castris. Evernight's E1 is just the best option for any Remembrance team. After that, you can go straight to Castris' E2, but if you want to try splitting Rem, Evernight's E2 should also be a priority somewhere down the line to offset reliance on mono Rem. Castris should be okay as a hyper carry with just E1, but in Anomaly Arbitration she will have to steal Hyacine since she's a weaker unit than Evernight at the same cost. That's all for Castris. Castris is still a good unit, but just like Evernight, if you don't have Hyacine or Evernight herself already, you're fighting an uphill battle trying to backpull a meta team. In HSR, you always are in a disadvantage trying to pull for rerun, but if you were gonna pull anything on a rerun, Mono Rem is like your best choice by far.
I agree. Firefly.
The last unit is Firefly. Just like Dahlia, Firefly will be judged on the basis of how good Break itself is as an archetype, because after Nova Flare, Firefly is very ahead of pretty much every other Break DPS barring Himiko in Pure Fiction. Firefly's notable upsides being that she is a constant stream of damage unlike Bootil, being able to implant easily unlike Rappa, and having a great E2 to raise your ceiling. Firefly is noticeably much tankier, which makes sustainless runs much easier with her than any other Break DPS that isn't named Lingshaw. She simply has the highest amount of benefits compared to every other Break carry, that if you are starting to build Break from scratch, there's very few reasons why you should pick any other Break DPS except for Firefly. Especially now that enemy HP has risen where simply running Lingsha as a main DPS can struggle with Anomaly Arbitration without Eidolon. But in the 3 endgame modes, she's very easy for new players looking to dip their toes into Jade rewards. She can brute force many matchups due to her blast damage, she has constant implants for matchup flexibility, and she just has a lot of damage. Dahlia and Firefly as a core is fairly cheap too, with Gallagher, Harmony MC, and Ron May all being very accessible. The only caveat with Firefly is that Nova Flare didn't fix the fact that Firefly is completely bricked without Dahlia. So if you don't have Dahlia, Firefly is worthless, even in lower endgame modes. With that being said, in Anomaly Arbitration, HP inflation does not slow down for Firefly either. I was under the impression that Firefly didn't need a Nova Flare with how she overperformed during 4.0, but after trying out 4.1 and the preview for 4.2 Anomaly Arbitration, it became more clear to me that Firefly's Nova Flare was in fact needed to save her from the difficulty spikes occurring in Anniversary. Thankfully, Firefly's Nova Flare was impactful enough that running E0 Firefly is still able to clear, but her time is ticking to get her E2, and I cannot be sure that she will keep doing Anomaly Arbitration without Eidolons on her or Dahlia. So as a word of caution, if you're an Anomaly Arbitration player, if you want Break to survive beyond the 3 endgame modes, you might have to pick up Dahlia or Firefly Eidolons to make it past the finish line and get your full star knight. It's pretty worth it though. Break again has many logistical benefits that also extend to Firefly. You can refer to the Dahlia chart again because Firefly is included there in her investment. Again, Firefly needs Dahlia at a bare minimum. Then E2 Firefly or E2 Dahlia is equally viable options. E2 Firefly is
don't get that light cone,
but it is better. Whereas E2 Dahlia
don't get that shitty light cone like I did.
Play Firefly all the time, and you want like I don't know your Ling Shaw or your Boot Hill to be good or something. Not much else to say. Firefly is a good unit. That's all for the Phase 1 banners. I planned on making this include Phase 2, but there's so much to say that
Phase 2 is such a disaster, man. Isn't Phase 2 so bad? What the fuck? Sunday, Tribi, and Yao and Evanesia. What the fuck are we supposed to do with that? What are we supposed to do with that nonsense? And Facial. Silverwolf, Constance, and Constance Lycon. What should be my pulling order? What are your? We need context. Don't you have Yagwang already? E2 Fugue, E6 Rame. But you oh jeez. You already have dots, so I would say that like it's not as much as a priority to get break up and running. But it literally doesn't exist without Dahlia, and your Fugue would just kind of just sit there, do nothing. Not necessarily, but I guess I would get Constance first, and then Silverwolf, and then Constance Lightcone. Oh my god. Okay, I need to get like... I need to roll down. Thank you. Oh my god. Blood Flame. I didn't get a single reader, by the way. I was looking for one. E2 Huohuo. That sounds... I'm sorry. Okay, no shade to Soul. E2 Huohuo sounds like the most like cope thing. Like if you're dying from her, right? And she revives one of your units, right? I just feel like you're gonna die anyway. Is that bad? Like the funniest thing would be like, oh, I can't wait. I'm gonna use my golden companion spirit on Huohuo's E2 and that'll fix all the issues. And then they die and they remove all the buffs because they're dead, right? And she brings them back to life and then somebody else dies anyway. And then a new upgraded version of Huohuo comes out and then we don't use her anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it can't be. This can't be. Okay. All right. Oh, Guoba.
Hey, Kelba here, back again for a brand new main character form. This time we have Elation MC, a return to the Harmony MC-esque kit design, but they benefit their archetype in a unique and interesting way. Just not as meta-defining, but hey, their animations are timeless at least. We'll check out what their kit does, including all of their free Eidolons, how to build them in the best way, and then talk about teams and how they synergize in them. Like and sub to catch more guides and info on all the changes in 4.2, and let's begin. So this Lightning MC form boasts a high base speed as well as a decently high energy cost. Luckily, they'll have elation skills to help out, as well as innate energy gain boosts, so they end up ulting a fair amount. For investing into them, they are such a cheap unit and likely on a supportive build, so you could just only level up their ult and they'd nearly be at their peak power. But if you want damage from them, invest into their elation skill and then talent. Their skills and basics are useless to level though. So let's check out their abilities, starting with their skill. It's an AoE attack and interestingly gives 20 points of certified banger to themselves, rather than giving X amount of punchline like nearly everyone else does. Since their turns take down any previous certified banger, this will create a new 2-turn 1 for free, ensuring permanent banger uptime for them if they can use their skill. But their ult is the true source of the kit. We get some punchline, but then a 3-turn 54% crit damage buff to a designated ally.
Should Eden be disassembled into water and twink essence? Okay. Let's make a poll. You have 2 minutes. Content does not meet guidelines.
What's also pretty cool for a non-sustain is that we get a dispel on any crowd control effects, useful if your sustain or cleanse still has time before acting, and it's one of our only off-turn CC dispels. Anyways, what it does more importantly is the next part, where if the target has an elation skill, so any elation unit, they'll gain 10 certified banger and then immediately use their elation skill, counting as if it had 20 punchline. This is like a mini version of Yao Guang ult, and it's pretty cool to have on a free unit, as any broken past or future elation skill can be duped by them. Right now, this will be exclusively used by DPS like Sparksy, Silverwolf, and Evanesia, and we know the scalings of the first two already. Sparksy's elation skill has an insane multiplier, so for her as a main DPS, this is a decent amount of amplification.
As a main DPS, nice asterisk.
So some extra SP. Silverwolf, on the other hand, has 2 elation skills, and being able to dupe either of them is awesome. We can dupe her base skill for ult generation to re-enter her ult ASAP, or we can use it to duplicate her enhanced elation skill Bomber. And since it gives certified banger, again, not punchline, this means we can force banger uptime kind of like Yao Guang as well, which is another reason for why they can be useful. Anyways, the ult is important, so a great way to help out in generating that is their talent. Just like Harmony MC, we get free energy in a big way, just a shame we can't use DDD, huh? Every attack they perform is 3 punchline for Aha and 10 energy for themselves, but do note that this is sadly fixed and does not scale with energy regeneration rate. But it's still a large number, and it being based on attacks means that it includes their relation skill, which is pretty substantial considering the amount that you can get in a fight. Their talent also describes their certified banger passive like other elation units,
thank
and
God.
theirs just gives some elation scaling damage on their skill. Now it does scale its banger multiplier on the highest certified banger value among allies, which is neat, but their damage still won't be insane even with this. Their elation skill finally is just a bounce, then split attack, all scaling with elation damage. No buffs or bonus utility until we get to traces and eidolons. Speaking of those, Trailblazer is an attack scaling elation unit, as they will convert it past 1000 up to 2200 for a total 60% elation buff. At the end of the day, it isn't mandatory to max out, as action counts and not dying is more important, but it's not too hard to hit and it gives them damage to help the team out a little. Their A4 then buffs them even more with a permanent 15% crit rate boost, and also gives them some pretty cool utility, this time with 1 SP on ults. This isn't a one-time thing like Harmony MC's E1 on skill, it's just every ultimate. Finally, the Trailblazer will give 2 more certified banger to themselves on their skill after allies use elation skills. This is pretty negligible, but looks to be at least a nice small bonus to their Evanesia teams. But now onto Eidolons before we get to builds. Remember, these are all free and thus part of the base kit. E1 gives more certified banger on the ult from 10 at a base to up to 16, but you must use skills on Elation MC, which might not always be desirable. In a Silver Yao EMC team, you can use it all the time, but either way, it's just a small bonus, and again, looks to be more useful for Evanesia than anyone else.
And where is Evanesia?
E2, however, then gives some more amp to our MC, annoyingly a 2-turn rather than 3-turn buff of 12% elation. Nothing too crazy, but at least we aren't only giving 54% crit damage now. E4 takes the amping another step further with a small but cool 10% vulnerability on elation skills for 2 turns. And this 2 turns doesn't matter this time because it's per elation skill rather than ultimate. Finally, E6 gives himself 100% crit damage on elation skill, which sounds like a massive DPS increase, but the power of Silverwolf and Sparksy as carries in their own team, or both of them in a dual DPS team, outweigh EMC's damage contribution by so much. Even Yao Guang will be doing more damage. So we get 10% Vuln, 12% elation, 54% crit damage, and a free elation skill every ultimate. We also have 20 to 30% elation from the technique, but it only lasts 3 turns. There's of course Lycone options, as we'll see later, for more amp, but any support has support Lycones. So it's alright but not crazy, and mostly single target, which can hurt dual DPS compositions like the Silver Sparksy one. How good they are in a team will mostly depend on your alternative options, as well as how broken your unit's elation skill is, as the biggest point of EMC's kit is that duplication. EMC also has some OP damage, but it will not compare to the power of the main DPS naturally. It's nice to have here and there though. I think they could have gone further into the elation niche, or brought elation outside of the path, kind of like how Harmony MC let everyone be a great DPS for a couple patches, but it is what it is. Anyways, it's build time, and with another supportive MC with an important ult comes the same build. Eagle baby, and if you don't want to deal with just use your old Harmony MC empty set on them with an energy rope. Eagle is for the most amount of actions, allowing for more ults in a fight, and thus allowing for more ally elation skills. However, there are alternatives. First off, 2-piece speed combos as an alternative to higher action count focus builds on the MC.
That looks good.
But you can buff your team too. Diviner, if you don't already have a user on the team, can provide the team with a 10% elation buff, and it also helps boost EMC's damage capabilities a little, whilst also having a 2-piece speed effect. Then we have Hackerspace, which is usually pretty niche, but since Silverwolf scales on speed for her conversion, well, 12% speed is a whole lot of elation, more than even Diviner. However, Diviner is permanent, it buffs all allies, and Hackerspace has only a 1-turn duration. And since we can't ult on Silverwolf's actual turn to extend it to 2 actions, I don't really like Hackerspace until E2, because E2 Silverwolf can extend the duration at least, as well as use extra turns to abuse the buff a little longer. Finally, we have Sacerdos, which only works on EMC's ult, but it is still another form of small buffing if you have nothing else. This would not be used on Silverwolf teams. She outpaces the duration way too easily, but Sparksy DPS, and perhaps Evanesia, if she is a slow carry, could make use of it. So again, Eagle for action count, Diviner if you don't have a user on the team, and then you have Hackspace for Silverwolf E2, or Sacerdos for non-Silverwolf
this Blood Flame team is so bad.
Really want more buffs. But 2-piece speed combos are a generalist option that work wherever as well. Then for planars, Von Whack doubles up as an energy planar and a free
Von Whack and Eagle.
as soon as possible. Useful in wolf teams to dupe an elation skill super early into the fight, but remember again that ult provides crit damage and some elation, which you might want early for instant power. But another option can be Lushaka if your main DPS is Sparksy. I mean, even if she isn't, you can place her in slot 1 anyway and she'll get the buff. Finally, Kill would technically buff all your team and their elation damage, but requires F-Res, so you could instead just use the new Converging Star set for the strongest team application on a planar. You just again like the 5% energy, and you gotta have good pieces, but you'll be farming for Punk Lord anyway, right? For your main stats, you could opt for a crit rate chest for damage, but a defensive piece like HP or defense is completely fine to help if you've got large speed subsets on them. Otherwise, it's going to be speed boots always. Then for your orb, elation damage doesn't scale on attack or damage percent, but you can run an attack orb for their elation conversion trace, again for their damage. Though they can also get this with subsets if using the Herta Shop Cone that gives 40% attack. For the rope, only go energy. Though the stat goal is all in on speed, and reaching 2200 attack is a possible secondary goal. Any crit rate stats you can get will help too. You first focus on speed,
this
and
blood
then
flame
you
shit is
choose
so
for
bad. I can't do
ability
this anymore.
substats or crit substats, depending on what you want to do with them. Some speed breakpoints you can reach for though are the classic 160 for a generic all-around support goal, 167 with the Eagle with 2 ults and 3 actions in cycle 0. For wave 1, if using Von Whack, these breakpoints will also make sure you're hitting 3 actions too, but you'll need to ult once if under 173.4 speed. Anyways, to finish off builds, let's talk light cones. They only have 2 options. We'll have to see about Ever's cone, and those are the Herta Shop cone released in 4.1, as well as the classic Mushy Shroomy cone. The Herta cone helps with their elation conversion attack goal of 2200, and also
Ain't nobody picking this. Okay, so I'm going to pee, and let this go. I'm gonna let you guys go. We'll be back later on, okay? Alright, I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Bye! Oh my god.